How big?
Good. How are you? Good to hear. Ready for action?
Interesting to see. Say that now.
So on page 42.
I will get that information to you tomorrow.
Wait on that answer.
I think practically, I was talking to my husband about like what to say in the house. And I was like, I'm definitely like a behind the scenes person.
Yeah.
And so all weekend, any questions, I have to get back to you. So please just answer the questions.
How's it going? Oh. Okay. This is the roll call sheet.
Good evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilor Fascio,
Present.
Councilman Waldron,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sapp is not with us this evening. Councilman Crestus.
Present.
Good evening and welcome. This is the second of two budget hearings that Penn Hills is required to conduct under its home rule charter as it plans next year's expenses and projects its revenue. Last Monday, for those of you that may have been here, we had our regularly scheduled council meeting, but we also did our first budget hearing. And at that time, there was a presentation that was made, which is available online, and it could be referred to later if need be. But in that first meeting, it was really a presentation that I give every year that we've been doing as part of this administration to give a general overview of what our finances are, and especially in terms of how we've ended up in the last year to see how things look, and then going into next year. And so that was really the main emphasis of the first hearing, was to give some real information about some of the larger challenges that are facing us financially, and oftentimes a lot of good news too. As I shared last week, the finances are actually in some ways stronger than they've ever been at Penn Hills, and that's a really good thing. But as part of that, as decision makers, as council, as mayor, they have a function to plan ahead, which is part of what this is. So in this second hearing, typically it's been set up to hear from the public, which is you, about what your priorities are. So depending on the formalities that occur, it's usually you come to the podium and you state your name, and we try to keep that to 3 minutes if we can, just to be conscientious of time. And so it's really an opportunity for us to hear from you. It is your money, and you should know how it's going to be programmed next year. So with that, I would encourage anyone. There was no need to sign up or anything. We're all happy that you're here. There's no need to sign up in advance. You just approach the podium, and you would just state your name and address for the record, because we do build a record for who attends, and then we hear from you as residents about the budget that's been put out there. And we typically try to encourage you to look at that comment period as for you. It is your comment period to tell us what you think about the budget. But as part of that, it's only natural that you may have some questions. And while I don't necessarily discourage questions, I would just ask you to realize and understand that we may not be able to answer all questions that you want, but to the extent that we can answer a question for you during your comment period, we certainly will attempt to do that. But if we can't, don't be alarmed. We always get back to you, whether it's at a budget hearing, whether it's at any other meeting, or whether it's day to day here. We always get back to you as much as we can with answers. So with that, I would just open the hearing up to residents that want to approach the podium and talk about our spending plan for next year.
Bill Mouts, 1335 Maple Avenue in Verona, PA. Before I begin, John Delano, the political analyst for KDKA TV, is retiring. There's going to be a 1-hour special on KDKA TV tomorrow at 11. Everybody should check it out. Mayor Calabrese, I've heard you say 1,000,000 times that you'd like to fill every home in Penn Hills. And we only have about 75% occupancy. Raising taxes is not one way to do it. Reducing taxes is. We have to find ways to reduce our budget. Look at areas where there are properties in Penn Hills that are making money and maybe not necessarily ending up in our budget. And I'm talking about the William McKinley Center. They need to audit that building, find out how much profit they're making, and if there is any profit other than actual running a business, that profit should be returned to the municipality. Okay? There's enough property there to put 4 or 5 homes. They don't need all that property. We could sell that property to a builder and build 3 or 4 or 5 homes, or maybe a dozen mini homes for homeless veterans. Okay, there's other ways to find money. Then there's the discretional spending. We have wants and we have needs. And one of our wants was to build $600,000 new lighting and cameras for the intersection at 5 Points, where that is Cool Hollow and Frankstown. We have $600,000 to spend on lights, but we don't have enough money to give our fire department what they need. I think that was a silly thing to do. I run that intersection every day. I see nothing wrong with the way it is. And if you did put cameras there, who's going to be monitoring them? I don't see anybody advertising for people to monitor screens 24/7. So what is the camera going to do? I mean, is it going to be constantly running and if something happens? I mean, $600,000, you could have hired a police officer to sit there for 10 years. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Greg. Excuse me, Greg Swatchik, 648 Gramick Lane. I wanted to open with thanking Scott for a very comprehensive, detailed introduction to everything that we need to know. He kind of teed it up, you know, why we're here, and it was very inviting to serve as it should, anybody that wants to participate. So I just want to comment that I just think that was very well done. And the next thing I'd like to cover is deals with the mayor and her letter in the Penn Hills Progress. The last budget meeting, of course, you know, it wasn't published and distributed, but I had a chance to get it, and I've previously encouraged people to read the Penn Hills Progress. There's some good stuff in there from time to time. And relative to her letter, I think that it was a genuine, sincere approach to try to hit all cylinders and review and show what's at odds and what's in tension with each other. And she did a very good job. There's nothing that I could think of to add to cover it in that comprehensive manner. And you know, I guess it would take a duly elected mayor to author something like that. And I was just very impressed by it. That being said, relative to cuts, I think that she is, unlike, and I'm just speculating, Ms. Inmarato, with a 40 or 46% Allegheny County property tax increase. I think this reminds me of movies where there's a good cop, bad cop conspiracy, where she is outrageously high, knowing full well the council's never going to go for that. And so with our mayor, I don't think that she's being that good cop, bad cop outrageousness that our county newly elected county executive is doing. So I think that she's right, that there could be areas for cuts. It is a lot to ask for a lot of senior citizens to pay. Gradual certainly does help instead of abrupt like Ms. Inmarato. But when I get to the specifics of it, I can't tell you where cuts could be. I did not fine-tooth comb everything. It's all presented to us. It's category and numbers. The only way that I could do a purpose reference calc conclusion would be if I had access, and rode around in everybody's pockets from all the departments and see if we're getting 8 hours of work in a day or 2. I have no doubt that everybody isn't working to the best of their ability, all the hours they're being paid. But if, as Mr. Councilman Carestas indicated once before, the availability of reports from time to time would help those matters. So I can't specifically say where to cut or comment on that because I don't have access to it.
I'm sorry,
But
if you could please conclude.
okay, and I'll conclude with, as a result of that, the only thing I can do is trust, okay, which I really don't give out that easily, trust that the powers to be, in a way fear God, are responsible with fiscal responsibility. And as always, I told the new councilmen when they were elected, just do what you think is right. You're privy to the information I don't have. But I think those things needed to be said, and I appreciate the time that you afforded me to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rockmire, 43 Rushmore Drive. I think a lot of you know I'm on the school board. And we were in a very similar situation and much worse, actually, than the municipality. And we went into recovery. We came out of recovery, a big help. You have the, whatever it's called, the recovery thing. We had the ESSER funds that came into the district and really brought our fund balance up. But I see that, you're proposing an increase in taxes, and I actually support that increase because what we had done, and we now at the school board have like a 13 million or more positive fund balance, plus we moved some money into a capital fund, that's just in our general fund, and we moved some money into a capital improvement fund. But what we also implemented, and I heard Scott talk about this last time, I wasn't at your meeting, but I looked on the YouTube video, and he implemented putting a fund balance policy in. We did that in the school district. And what we do now is we're out of recovery, but we're still in what they call oversight. So for the next 5 years, the state's looking over our shoulders. We still have our recovery officer there. And we have to make sure that we don't regress. And we have a fund balance policy that does a 5-year projection as far as what we expect expenses and revenues to be. And by looking at that, this year, we saw that we were going to start to go down. And we didn't want that to happen. So we did vote to increase taxes 1 mil, which is a little less than 3%, or right around 3%. But by doing that, you keep that fund balance in the desired range. So everybody hates to hear tax increases, but you got to do what is necessary to not get into a situation where, I know Scott talked about back in, I don't know what it was, 2018 or so, you were down to like less than $3 million and really just living kind of on a shoestring. So, you know, your fund balance, you can go on our line, it's one of our policies. You can look at and see what our fund balance policy is. But it does look at a projection, and it does ensure, and what it does is it kind of takes the tax increase out of this kind of whim of just whether we want to do it or not. It's actually defined that if you go to a certain point, you need to increase the taxes, whether it's up to, you know, we're relegated by the school code so that they have an index that we can raise taxes up to that index. So,
Please,
you know, I strongly recommend that you do implement something like that.
Any further comment from the public? And please do keep in mind that this is not the last meeting before we vote, so you will have another opportunity to come forward. We will be here on December 9th as well as December 16th, so you do have an opportunity to go back and look at the presentation that's online, and you have an opportunity to look at the actual budget, which is on our website. And this is not your last opportunity, but if there's any further public comment right now, please come forward. Councilor Fascio, any comment?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carestis, any comment?
Yes, Mayor, thanks. Just very quickly, you know, I have absolute full faith in our finance department and the manager to tell us when we need to increase taxes in the community. You know, I think it's our job as council up here and the mayor to decide what is the right level. We understand that a responsible municipality our size should have a fund balance end of year somewhere around $10 to $12 million. That's just best practice. You can look that up. The question is, how do we maintain that balance with costs continuing to rise and knowing that this year we're about $1.1 million deficit? So we have to make that up somewhere. You know, I spent my Friday night this past week doing various different scenarios of different mill rates to see, well, where would our fund balance be in 27, 28 if we raised at 1 mil or 0.5 mil? So my suggestion that I would ask the finance and the manager to look into would be a 1 mil increase in 2025 and a half mil in 26. This would smooth, you know, the drastic jump over 2 years, and plus the notion that, you know, there's no reason why we couldn't plan the next 2 years, assuming no variables change. Council isn't changing by the end of next December, so why not have a longer-term plan that would help the community ease the increase that we need to stay at the proper amount of a general fund? So something to consider, and I hope we could look into that as an alternative. Thanks.
Councilman Waldron.
Yeah, the only thing I'll bring up tonight is that, you know, one of my initiatives for 2025 will be to kind of look into our digital systems that we're using within the municipality and kind of investigate some of the platforms out there for managing government systems such as like GovPilot or OpenGov, and see if there's any potential uses there that can save us money in the long term. Kind of evaluate what systems we're using now and if we can find some cost savings by implementing one of these more comprehensive systems across the board. I don't have a...
What was the second one called now?
GovPilot, and then there's OpenGov. There's quite a few of them, but those are kind of two of the leading ones. I've had demos of both of them over the past year. I don't necessarily have costs involved, nailed down in terms of how much that's going to cost us over the year, but knowing software systems like I do, you know, if we're using a bunch of bespoke systems currently, implementing one of these platforms could provide better service at a lower cost, and also online services for the public to engage with us in a more cohesive way, I believe. So I'll do some more research on that over the next couple of weeks for the next budget hearing. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Our first speaker said, Mayor Calabrese, you constantly say that we need to fill every home. Yes, we do. We absolutely do, because we are not like, for example, Monroeville, which has a business base. Our tax base is made up of residents. That's all we have. Please keep in mind that I do not have the power, nor should I, nor anybody sitting here as mayor. I do not have the power to raise taxes on my own, or to say otherwise, to raise them or not, or what percentage. That is a function of every elected official up here. In my letter, I said I'm opposed to a 2 mil increase. I think that is too large of an increase given what's happening at the county right now. And as I stated in my letter, we are not an island. Our residents have other taxing bodies, the school district, state, federal. So I think we need to, that's the balancing act that we have to find. How do we raise the funds to make Penn Hills an attractive place to live, while at the same time not raising it so that it pushes people away? I think that we, and nowhere in my letter do I say at all, or in my message do I mention any cuts. We have, and I've said this 1,000 times, and we are very fortunate to have a professional staff here at Penn Hills. Every one of our employees, our labor force, cost of labor is the highest cost, and they are well worth every penny. I'm not at all suggesting we make any cut in that direction. I am, however, suggesting that we take a look at where we were back when we were headed to financial disaster, when we had less than $3 million. Through the American Rescue Funds, we were able to wisely use the money and get where we are today. This is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity. We have got to be very good stewards of these funds. It's not coming along again, folks, or at least we have to presume that it's not going to come along. We have to hope for the best and plan for the worst, as the saying goes. I hope that we do not have another coronavirus. I truly do. So having said that, we have to realize these funds are, as I said, a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I think that we need to sort of hold the line where we are with our expenses and take a look at a fund balance policy and take it from there. But we have we won't be voting on this for a while, so there will be 2 more opportunities to come here. So if you haven't already seen the presentation that's online, please do so, take a look at that. And please know that I never once used the word cut. I think our labor force is worth every nickel, and I do think that public safety has to be number one. And that is, among that are our firefighters who, as I said last week, if we did not have a volunteer force, that in and of itself would be well over $10 million. So please, if you haven't already, please take the opportunity to take a look at the presentation, take a look at the actual budget, and please know that we will be here again on December 9th and December 16th, and we welcome further discussion on this. On behalf of the municipality and behalf of everyone here on council, from us to you and your family and loved ones, we wish you a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. With that said, have a good evening, and this meeting is adjourned.
Here's my very rough estimates. I like colorful charts.
Yeah, I emailed you back today. It was like a couple hours ago. I didn't see it.
Right.